At 6:30 a.m., we arrived at Highland, promptly by Miss French's order, for a lecture by Nate Armstrong, the mining engineer. He told us that there was a collapse recently that he had to deal with. At 7 a.m., we packed the cars and left exactly on time. Then we drove for a very long time, and Meow slept very much while we listened to Miss French's great CD of beautiful songs. Then we drove for a very long time, and Meow slept very much while we listened to Miss French's great CD of beautiful songs. We got to the wind farm at the base of the canyon, and we had a lecture where we learned that that was one of the most efficient wind farms in the state, utilizing the cold air drainage of the canyon.
At the lecture, we learned that 2.1 million watts per hour are produced that generate electricity for 1,000 to 1,200 homes per turbine.
So we went to the geology site with Danielle, which is pretty cool beans. And then she taught us about the landscape and this awesome metaphor about a tipping bookshelf. It's pretty cool. Then we went to our first water testing site where we learned about tamarisks, which is an invasive species, and they have something called the taproot that go deep into the ground. It's pretty scary. And there was this crazy dead bird. He's dead.
After that, we split up into two groups, each going to different water sites. We went to water site 2, where the terrain was rocky and the water was cold, where Robert and I had to swim 3 miles to collect the freshest water sample.
After we drove to water site number 3, and we tested the water in the soil there.
After driving for a little bit longer, we ended up in Kodachrome, and we set up camp in Arches and Oasis. It was hard, and we all got yelled at by a tiny person. And then we went to eat dinner, and it was delicious. And after that, we camped back over, and we got in some sleeping bags, and we slept through the very cold night.
On the second day, we all got into our cars so we could head to another site in Kanab to go to the Bureau of Land Management and take notes on how the BLM works. After we ate lunch at the BLM, we headed over to the reclamation site at Muddy Creek, where we learned how the Bureau of Land Management manages the land over there. After we were done at the reclamation site, we headed back to Kodachrome Basin and sat around the fire and talked with each other. After we were done talking at the campsite, we headed back to Oasis, where a couple of the girls went and slept on the rock and looked at the stars in the middle of the night.
On day 3, we canyoneered in this really cool area. We had to rappel down 3 different cliffs. The first one was easier, and it slowly got harder. Once we got done with the last rappel, we had to walk about 2 miles up a wash where we met 2 different people for lectures. The first one was geology, the second one was biology. Then we walked up the rest of the way where we met the rest of the group, and then we had an archaeology lecture.
After the archaeology lecture, we headed back to camp and sat around the fire to roast marshmallows with the whole class.
At 10 a.m., we packed everything to leave Kodachrome and drive home. Then we had our final geology lecture with Tom Toronto, where we talked about the mud tubes protruding from the cliff face. At that point, we went to the viewpoint to take our group picture, and then got ready to go to the oil fields and learn about how they work. We had a long lecture at the oil fields about how they worked, and the smell was terrible. After that, we had a 5-hour drive to the trailer, and then we all went our separate ways.